since then spent more than 6 years on red meat. You have to have fat with a lean. Lean and fat together make a perfect diet.
What's up, everybody? I kind of felt like slaughtering an herbivore today. I hope you're hungry. Look, I offered the chub chode a chance to chat, but it scurried away with its tail between its legs, acting all indignant, so this unscrupulous beatdown will have to suffice. Let's just get into it.
First of all, I don't care what diet you eat. Nope. The revisionist history stops here.
I wanted to pause for just a second to note something. Look at Stephenson's face and neck. He's kind of bloated and puffy. He's fat. Perhaps he's got some undiagnosed thyroid issue. Maybe he just doesn't take good care of himself.
I guess Sean Baker gets his information from Wikipedia, where the entry on Vilhjalmur Stefansson must have been written by a fanboy.
Fanboy? Well, that's an ad hominem attack. From an animal rights activist, tree hugger, anti-keto, carnivore hater. So, a fanboy of veganism. How easily these ignorant kooks discredit themselves. But I don't care about any of that. Let's debunk his arguments with truth and logic.
But you're about to see the real story right now. Back in the 1920s, Vilhjalmur Stefansson and Karsten Andersen decided to eat a 100% all-meat carnivore diet for a year in the name of science, and the results were terrible. Terrible in what ways? This is the claim.
In all honesty, the only research on the carnivore diet that's been done has been very positive. You know, the 6 peer-reviewed studies that came out in 1928 with Stefansson and Andersen when they did it for a year, and they found no deficiencies whatsoever. They were completely healthy.
And this is the reality. This is the actual data. The solid lines represent these two men and their severely crippled carbohydrate metabolism while eating a carnivore diet after 1 year.
Terribly crippled carbohydrate metabolism. Nowhere in this study do the researchers say this. Quite to the contrary. Actually.
They had terrible blood sugar control after 1 year on a carnivore diet. Karsten Andersen had prolonged hyperglycemia. After eating a mixed diet for a few weeks, which obviously increased their carbohydrate intake, they both performed much better on the oral glucose tolerance test represented by the dotted lines.
After eating a standard diet for a few weeks, they did much better on the oral glucose tolerance test. So, how exactly is their carb metabolism crippled if they're healthy? Huh? Did Jesus come down from heaven and heal them? Or was it the miraculous diabetes-causing sugar diet? In the first test, they were eating a keto carnivore diet. And yes, after the initial glucose bolus of over 100 grams, their blood sugar levels were in the diabetic range. For carb burners! When you take this oral glucose tolerance test, you are instructed to, quote-unquote, eat normally or to not restrict carbs before the test. Obviously, then, this criteria wasn't met here, so the results do not apply. After all, these standards were established studying a high-carb population, not fat burners. Obviously, they do not apply here, not insofar as determining whether or not these men are diabetic. Duh. Moreover, the OGTT, that's what we're going to call it from now on, is administered worldwide using 75 grams of glucose, not over 100. One more reason why the test standards do not even apply in this case. Once the men were retested after no carbohydrate restriction, which satisfied only one of the requirements to meet the OGTT standards, because the sugar dose was still roughly 30 grams higher than the standard. Just FYI, there was some additional sugar in the orange juice added to the 100 grams of glucose water solution. And after that, their blood sugar levels were perfectly normal. So again, how was their carb metabolism, quote unquote, crippled? Even if, say, you take the OGTT and all the test conditions are met, and you do come back with diabetic numbers, you should always get a second test to confirm the first. The second test did not confirm the first, which was invalid as a diabetes diagnosis anyway. How is their carb metabolism crippled? Let's read what the actual researchers thought of all this. Quote, "The above results are not new," unquote. And then they cite other studies that showed this. Continuing, quote, "It was believed that during a period of a low carbohydrate, high fat diet, the need for insulin was diminished, with a resulting decrease in its production. Then, upon administration of a large quantity of carbohydrate to a subject subsisting on such a diet, the carbohydrate mechanism is heavily taxed. The production of insulin cannot keep up with the demand, the result being a hyperglycemia and often a glycosuria as well," unquote. That's sugar in your urine. Everybody in the low-carb community who knows anything knows that, quote-unquote, carbing up after prolonged ketosis is problematic. And why would any low-carber all of a sudden consume the sugar equivalent of 7.5 bananas or 10.5 cans of Coke in one sitting? Why would anybody in their right mind do that? I said in their right mind. Moreover, here's something very interesting that Red Pill Vegan fails to mention. In at least 2 other studies, the researchers found out that, quote, "A diet consisting chiefly of protein does not lower the tolerance for glucose as much as a diet consisting principally of fat." A carnivorous diet. Basically, the speculation is that if you eat a lot of protein and there is less fat to fuel the body, your body will respond to a demand for glucose by converting some of the protein to carbs, by a process well known in the low-carb community as gluconeogenesis. So, as a carnivorous dieter, if you want your metabolism to remain more flexible and ready for anything you may throw at it for any reason, simply eat more protein, or the kind of carnivore diet that most people on this diet probably already do eat. Or if you're more of a keto adherent, don't all of a sudden drink a 3-liter Coke in one fucking sitting, and chances are you're gonna be fine.
Upon the first glucose tolerance test being administered, Karsten Anderson was found to have glycosuria, or the presence of sugar in his urine, which by itself is a symptom of uncontrolled diabetes.
No, it's not. It cannot be. Not by itself. Not in this context, as I already discussed. As it is discussed in this study. Again, quote, "The above results are not new," unquote. Other subjects in similar studies experience glycosuria, or sugar being excreted in urine, as well. And thank God for our body's ability to excrete excess sugar in urine. Without that, you just may die. Sounds like Anderson's body was functioning properly.
This dude was a wreck. A few hours after the first glucose tolerance test, Karsten Anderson developed pneumonia.
Anderson developed pneumonia. And? So, see, what Red Pill Vegan doesn't show you is what's on the next page. Quote, "The infecting organism was pneumococcus type 2, unquote. He had a bacterial infection. How was this? Because of his all-meat diet. What's the mechanism here? Genius? Moreover, it clearly states in the study that during the study, Anderson had 3 cases of, quote, mild pharyngitis, unquote, or sore throat. Was he a smoker? Did he inhale secondhand smoke? Did he spend much time by the fireplace in a poorly ventilated area? Did he contract this virus or bacteria from somebody else? Is this guy, Red Pill Vegan, expecting solely the carnivore diet to prevent sore throats? Do vegans never get sick? How does meat cause sore throat or pneumonia? Having your body constantly attacked by bacteria or viruses, as Anderson did, perhaps because of some poor lifestyle choice like smoking, weakens your immune system and leaves you susceptible to other infections or viruses, like pneumonia. The pneumococcus bacteria that causes pneumonia could have simply been a mutation of the streptococcus bacteria that causes pharyngitis, sore throat. Bacteria and viruses are not very well understood, and there's evidence that they mutate and morph. Whatever the case may be, they found the cause of his pneumonia, and it was bacterial, as it is in many cases. So how's this guy going to blame the all-meat diet when the researchers in the study never did, and they found what the actual cause was? This is dishonesty at its finest. Vegan dishonesty.
Now, before you say, oh, it's just a little pneumonia, remember this research was from the late 1920s. For reference, Alexander Fleming had just discovered penicillin. Pneumonia was the number 3 cause of death behind cancer and heart disease. Pneumonia was no joke in 1929.
What does that have to do with anything? Is he just scaremongering to divert from the fact that he's full of shit?
On top of that, we now know high blood sugar, or hyperglycemia, actually increases the risk of death from pneumonia.
Yes, that's what that study suggests, and this guy makes a logical leap from intimating that the meat diet caused his pneumonia, which is incorrect, to saying that high blood sugar increases your risk of dying from pneumonia. So, how is this even remotely related? What's the logical connection in this context? In other words, the carnivore diet and the subsequent huge sugar bolus did not cause his pneumonia. We know this. A bacteria did. And even though he had pneumonia by the time he showed symptoms of it many hours later, his blood sugar was already normal. Then, check this out, they gave him, the researchers in the study, an antibiotic and put him on a high-carb diet, spiking his blood sugar levels while the infection was still present, and he survived. Was it because his body was strong enough to fight off the frequent infections with the help of an antibiotic? And if so, was his body's resilience bolstered by the carnivore diet, even though the researchers put him on a dangerous, at least according to Red Pill Vegan and his sole study, high-carb diet during the period of his convalescence? Even though they put him at risk of dying by feeding him carbs, according to Red Pill Vegan, he survived. This clown cites a study that suggests that carbohydrate consumption puts you at a higher risk of dying during a simultaneous bout of pneumonia, and he somehow finds a way to implicate the very low-carb carnivore diet for Anderson's health problems? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Keep watching, because I'm not even done yet. Come on, man. Dr. Baker, how are you going to sit there and say this research was positive and they were both in good health? In
all honesty, the only research on the carnivore diet that's been done has been very positive.
Nah.
The 6 peer-reviewed studies that came out in 1928 with Stephanson and Anderson when they did it for a year, and they found no deficiencies whatsoever. They were completely healthy.
I guess if you're cool with diabetes like blood sugar control and almost dying, then you could say the research was positive. Hey, at least they weren't deficient in anything. Just because they didn't die of scurvy doesn't mean they were in great health. In fact, one thing they weren't deficient in was cholesterol. That's right, Viljamur Stefansson's cholesterol was over 300 at several points throughout the year while on the carnivore diet. Don't even get me started on Carsten Andersen again. This dude's blood cholesterol bounced around from 600 to 500 to 400 and at one point all the way up to 800 after a 20-hour fast, and then went down to 200 after he stopped the carnivore diet.
Oh, here we go with the cholesterol scaremongering. Look, man, there is zero proof that high cholesterol is dangerous to your health. Where's the proof? It doesn't exist. That's why Red Pill Vegan doesn't provide any proof. So his cholesterol jumped up after a 20-hour fast. No shit, Sherlock. Let's blame what he ate for a huge jump during eating nothing. Is this guy for real? When you fast, especially on a low-carb diet, your body starts burning fat exclusively. The lipoproteins in your bloodstream that carry cholesterol also carry triglycerides, which are the main source of fat energy in that state, the fat-burning state. Thus, you need more cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins in your blood to also deliver more fat energy or triglycerides. No shit, his cholesterol jumped up during a fast. He was probably burning more fat for fuel, as no gluconeogenesis was probably happening at the time. Additionally, on February 13th and 14th, he was once again sick, with his cholesterol coming back at 400 on the 15th. Well, that could be because cholesterol was fighting off that infection. His wild fluctuations in cholesterol could also be due to the fact that he was often sick. He was constantly being attacked by something, bacteria or virus, and his body was fighting it off. Maybe when his cholesterol was high, his body was doing just that, and it was so successful at it that he showed no symptoms in some cases. Thus, no symptoms were recorded. When you look at Stevenson's cholesterol readings for comparison, they are a lot more stable. Guess what? He suffered no infections and didn't do any prolonged fasts. But look, bottom line is that we do not fully understand cholesterol, and Red Pill Vegan doesn't understand it one fucking bit. And once again, where is the meta-analysis of all the studies on cholesterol that shows that high cholesterol is a sign of bad health? It doesn't exist.
So what happened to Vilhjalmur Stefansson? Vilhjalmur Stefansson died of a stroke at age 82.
Stephenson dies of a stroke. Don't you just love the sad music? The emotional manipulation is lovely. Thanks, bud.
A stroke is a form of vascular disease. Look, he is certainly an interesting character, and there is more information out there if you want to learn about his life.
Okay, let's cut through the bullshit. Stephenson died of a stroke at the age of almost 83. And we're all gonna die of something. And you should consider yourself lucky to make it to 82. What was the average life expectancy of someone born in 1879? 39 fucking years old. So this dude beat that by almost 43 years. How was he not a success story? Historically, life expectancy in the US from 1900 to 1998 rose from 46.3 to 73.8 years old. Stephenson even has modern-day Americans beat by a decade on average. The longest-lived males on the planet today by nationality are the Swiss, living on average 81.3 years. Stephenson beat that average by a year and a half. He even has the animal products eating modern-day vegan mascots, the Seventh-day Adventists, beat by almost a year. This guy beat all modern-day life expectancy averages in a time where people barely made it to middle age. He outlived his average counterpart by more than 4 fucking decades. How was he not a success story?
Vilhjalmur Stefansson, who has become somewhat of a low-carb / zero-carb / carnivore legend. Like many legends and anecdotes, the real story is much less whimsical and certainly not something I would base my diet on.
He survived the deadly measles when he was a child, decades before there was a vaccine available. He had mumps in early adulthood. He survived typhoid fever complicated by pneumonia and 2 bouts of pleurisy in 1918 when also hanging out with the Inuit and eating like them. After that, once he stopped venturing into these harsh environments where lesser men died during these voyages, apart from infrequent colds, he never got sick. While no doubt continuing to eat at the very least, a highly carnivorous diet because he believed in it. Then, Red Pill Vegan also points out that Stephenson had weak muscles and was flabby, as we already noted looking at him earlier. But he ignores that his lungs, heart, and abdomen were normal, or that there was no change in his vessels while he was being studied eating this supposedly deadly diet. So you had this flabby man who clearly didn't exercise or take particularly good care of himself. A man who grew up a sickly kid whose health also seemed to improve as he passed middle age and started eating carnivore, while most of his contemporaries were dropping dead like flies. You had this guy whose heart was deemed healthy and whose arteries experienced no change on this carnivore diet, who finally died of a stroke at a ripe old age of 82. A stroke which is not a heart attack, but a lack of oxygen in the brain that can be caused by a variety of factors like an aneurysm. This same man traveled some of the harshest environments on the planet, battling deadly diseases, ultimately outliving his average contemporary by 40 fucking years. But Red Pill Vegan insinuates that we should blame this man's health and longevity despite all odds and ability to successfully battle deadly diseases while being a fat slob. We should blame all of that and his more than timely death on the carnivore diet. I agree.
This one hit the heart, though it was meant for the brain. I guess I'm the one to blame with my fucked up aim. You got struck out in the game by default when we released this jewel from the CV vault.
With this shackle by your wrist with concrete for feet at the bottom of the abyss.
Once upon a time, I started smoking crack at age 30. My daddy got me started on it. Ever since I have been doing drugs, I do get my kick smoking it. I'm going to say this. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high on crack. My daddy enjoyed smoking that stuff. He had a good time at it. He used a paraphernalia pipe to smoke crack. That's what he have done. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high. My daddy got me high on crack.